There it is. Good morning.
Boom, baby. Welcome back to episode number 12 of Bob and Frank podcast. Trying to figure it out one pod at a time. And on today, we're changing it up. We've talked about how to start a hockey practice, how to acquire some skills, and how we feel like we like to go through our progressions and shown that. Little bit of a different tone today. We're talking hockey analytics.
Yep.
How do you score more goals? How can you use them? How do you even? How about this question? Comment of the day, and this question is for Grego.
Oh, here we go.
Do you even know what Corsi is? Do you know what your Corsi rating was as a pro hockey player?
No. No.
How about the Fenwick?
Nope.
Yeah, you don't like to include those block shots and miss the net opportunities. You haven't read into any of that.
If it's
In case you're in the same boat as Grego,
yep.
we've got special guests today, like we said. Not only the advanced analytics department of the Whitby U10 AAA team this year, scout for Lindsay Muskies of the Ontario Junior Hockey League, also works for the Belleville Senators. Huge passion for analytics. Welcome to the Bob and Frank podcast, Corey MacNeil.
Corey Stats.
Hey, how's it going, guys? Thanks for having me.
What's going on, Corey? How are you, buddy?
Going pretty well, yeah.
Good. Good to hear.
You've logged some hours at the rink doing some scouting this summer, or what?
Yeah, we had a rookie camp maybe a month or so ago, and just getting ready for the main camp coming later this month, and been working with you and Whippy there the last while, so lots of hours and ready to go for an exciting winter.
Love it.
Yeah, I'm fired up for it. We got to be. I'd love to hear that. But I feel like we're the only U10 team that has our analytics department, and I can't wait to kind of talk about how we're going to be implementing that this year and how it goes throughout the year. That's going to be cool. But I'd love to ask you. I once upon a time read a book called Stat Shot, and that kind of got me into hockey analytics, and some of the stuff was very cool, including the scouting reports, in particular, how the different ages kind of the different age you are in junior hockey and college hockey in particular really affects the amount of points you're putting up. Where your points as a 16-year-old are much more valuable in junior hockey as opposed to your points as an overager. But yeah, that's how I kind of got involved with it, and I've always kind of enjoyed it a bit. But how did you get started with hockey analytics?
So the way I mainly got started was just I fell in love with like the draft in the NHL. So I really my favorite part of the season was the off season and seeing drafts and kind of trying to make my own predictions on who I would think would pan out and their junior stats and kind of analyzing all of that. But getting older and kind of learning to get a greater appreciation of maybe why those stats matter. Following a couple guys like Kyle Dubas when he was first coming up, Steve Yzerman. Those are guys that like I mainly look to and made me appreciate the hockey analytics a little bit more.
Nice.
Love it.
Yeah, Brock Badger alum, myself, me and Kyle Dubas.
There you go.
Cut from the same cloth.
100% loved and hated in Toronto. It's all the same. There was speaking of Brock and stats. What was the gentleman's name, Spencer, who gave that spiel at the Brock seminar, and he called based on stats. He basically, to a T, called what would happen in those first three games of the Stanley Cup playoffs this year.
I'm Googling it right now. My guess is Dean Smith, but he was the RPI men's hockey head coach.
Yep.
And he had a really good Dave Smith,
I
think, who coached.
Sounds like that was his name.
Yeah, Dave Smith.
Yeah.
So he had an excellent presentation, and yeah, he was showing stats from some of the different NHL playoff series. It was the probably eve of Game 1 of Oilers and Panthers of the Stanley Cup Final, and yeah, his stats were really dialed, and everything he kind of said as to, if the Oilers kind of get out hot on the power play,
Yeah.
they'll win some games. But in terms of 5-on-5, like Florida really is gonna kind of have the more scoring chances, and based on their goalie, he had
It
a
had
pretty
to
dialed.
be.
I don't think I just did a very good job of his presentation, but I thought he did a great job.
No, you nailed the main points. There had to be like 40 or more stats, and he had circled a dozen or so, maybe 2 dozen of the ones that he thought were real game breakers. And it was like, 8-2 ratio of the Panthers winning those categories. And he basically said, like, yeah, here's like 2 categories. One of them was power play for the Oilers, where they were on top. And he just basically said, my pre-scout, which I think his whole speech was on pre-scout.
Yep.
And he said, yeah, if I was the Panthers, I'd be saying, guys, we're looking good. Stay out of the box or tighten up our penalty kill. And if you were the Oilers, it was like, we got to capitalize on power play. Like, that was the pre-scout that he would have basically given. And I'm not doing him justice. He talked about a lot more stats for sure.
And the 80% of the stats were probably dominated by Florida. And it really seemed like that through 3 games, obviously. But Oilers kind of caught fire and caught momentum on the offense, and that was hard to deal with. Yeah, great pre-scout. Anyhow, I wonder what resources he uses for his analytics there, but what kind of stuff do you use, Corey?
I really like to use Money Puck. That's the main page I go to, able to sort by all situations, 5-on-5, pull up different years.
Is sponsoring that?
That's a great question. I don't know.
Anyhow.
Need bigger branding.
Yep.
Yeah, huge.
Mm-hmm.
What kind of got you into it? What do you use it for?
What got me into Money Puck was just the whole concept of hockey analytics. So just when I first was doing my deep dive into kind of like trying to understand these big terms you hear, so Corsi, Fenwick, just going down a Google rabbit hole, ended up stumbling along Money Puck and just being able to sort by the percentages, see game by game all season long, and just completely nerding out after every game was how I stuck around.
Nice.
Can we get a crash course on that? Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, for those at home and Grego.
And me. Mostly me.
What's Corsi like? Corsi's your plus minus for shots for, shots against type of thing?
Yeah, basically. So it's a shot differential, or other times you hear it as like a possession percentage. So how you calculate a Corsi percent is shots for, and then divided by shots for plus shots against times 100. So with the shots for, shots against, what you're looking at is any shot. So on goal, miss the net, block shots, just any shot opportunity in general. Goes for both ways. With Fenwick, you'd be taking the same numbers but subtracting block shots. So it's a higher quality of shot. Same way to calculate the percentage, and yeah.
Cool. How do they figure out expected goals for?
Expected goals for, we'd be looking at kind of where they're taking the shots from on the ice, the quality of chance based on where on the ice, how far, the angle of the shot, and what type of shot. So like wrist shots are weighted as a higher scoring chance than a slap shot, depending on where you're shooting, stuff like that.
Is this for individuals or teams or both?
It's for, so your Corsi percentage and Fenwick percentage and everything, you'd be looking at individuals, but it's a line stat. So it's the line has a Corsi percent when you're on the ice. So your Corsi percent would be based off how many shots your team gets while you're on the ice.
And as a general rule of thumb, are the best
Mhm.
Corsi rated lines producing the most in, for example, the NHL?
Not necessarily, because when you take it, everything's got to be taken with a grain of salt as well. Like the highest percentage Corsi we saw last season was Jesper Fast, and I don't think like that line of Fast, Martinook, Stahl. They weren't producing the highest amount of points, but they were clearly a very dominant line. They were a good third line, but they weren't facing as high of competition as the first line would be, right?
Dialed.
Mhm.
Yeah. They weren't going lefty righty on pitch and batter. They had,
Yeah,
That's
there's
it.
definitely some people that are
setups.
probably a little bit pickier with their shot selection, whereas you got
Mhm.
Jason Blake just skating at the hash mark in the corner, and he's just slinging it at the net, boosting the Corsi rating. I think that's
Mhm.
fair. So yeah, no, I can understand how a line like that might be producing more shots and not.
Jason
For
Blake,
sure.
what a player! I can't believe it. What a call that was. That takes me back.
And expected goals for that is more of a team stat.
That's more of based on where you're taking the shot. So that's more of an individual stat,
Okay.
where Corsi and Fenwick is more based on your line.
Yeah.
How'd you not know that?
Right.
Unbelievable. That's why we got Corey stats.
Yeah. In terms of expected goals for, I think the earth-shattering question here, based on the stats, how do you score more goals? You're a junior player, a pro player. I feel like even maybe a minor hockey player, whatever you want to touch on. How do you score more goals?
So to score more goals, you got to understand where to get the greatest quality of chance, as well as how to get there. So stuff like changing of the angles, using your deception, knowing how to better get an angle from the hot zone and where the most goals are scored, will help you get more goals.
Clipping.
How do the stats take into consideration, obviously, for like, is there stats on? It's unbelievable how green I am in this area. How many stats talk about the quality of chance? Like, for example, like on the rush by yourself or a pass across the golden line or whatever they call it, center, the mid, the division of the ice, north,
The highway?
south, the highway. Is that what we call it? No. Is that a stat talking about when they talk about quality of chances? How do they divvy that up?
So when talking about quality of chance, you'd be looking at like expected goals per 60, but mainly just using your Fenwick there to see how many shots are being created, and where they're coming from. So just a combo of the both.
Because when
Is
you
there,
play Chell,
yeah, keep going with the Chell.
you got to pass it back door if you want to score. You can't just shoot it, right? Like,
I used to never shoot playing Chell. I would just only take shots that were like 100% a goal.
That's
the
it.
backdoor tapping.
Yeah.
What was I gonna say? Is sniper talent? Is that a stat? Am I thinking of that correct? Where it like kind of shows individually if you're good at scoring from those outside areas. Maybe we start talking about the areas of the ice, eh, Grego?
Yeah, you'd be looking at goals above expected. So how many goals you're kind of scoring above where you're expected from. So when looking at that heat map and you're getting those hot zones and getting an understanding of how many goals you're expected to score from the quality of chances you're getting, which goals are coming from the low danger side. So those high blue line, the dead zones around the sides of the ice, goals from there, and how many you're potting above what you're kind of expected to.
I remember, Spencer, there was the one season, might have been one or two ago, where Andreas Athanasiou, what did he have?
Happy to see you, in case you were wondering.
Andreas, happy to see you.
That's right.
what didn't he have a start of the season where he was 100% shooter for a few games?
I think it was maybe like 3 shots, 3 goals.
Yeah, 3 shots, 3 goals to start the season. And then
Yeah.
I immediately think basketball, and I remember the heyday of Kobe Bryant shooting like 60 shots a game, and you don't even realize how much he shot because he dropped 40 points or whatever. And then, Steph Curry, what kind of heat map is that, shooting from outside of the gym?
Yeah.
What is there players that you can rattle off right now, Corey, that just happen to score from places that you should not be shooting more than others?
When I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking of a lot of half wall guys. So guys like Patrick Kane, Clayton Keller, Jack Hughes, like those kind of guys are not necessarily taking it to the hottest zone on the ice. Where when you're looking at the highest percentage of goals scored, you're thinking of Zach Hyman right in the paint, Sam Reinhart, McDavid taking it right to the net. Where these guys are kind of scoring from the outsides of the ice there and creating plays off of the half wall. You see a lot of those short side snipes right over the shoulder from the dead zones, and yeah, those guys kind of come to mind.
Speaking of the short
you were
side,
wondering when I was winking at you, I don't know if you know what I was trying to tell you.
I thought that was
trying
for
to tell
later.
You to put the heat maps up.
We're going. Okay, let's get her going. I thought we were doing the heat maps later, Spencer.
I thought we were talking so we could, illustrate what we're talking about. Maybe not everyone knows exactly where the dead zone is and where the house is and where the.
No, you're absolutely right. I'm a visual learner if I'm going to learn at all.
Yeah. Okay. We got a nice top of the circle here. Corey, you want to maybe take us through how you would kind of clarify any of these zones? Do you want me to draw anything else?
I think you maybe draw a line through from both through the dots
through
there.
The hash, yeah.
Yeah. Perfect. So
zoom in.
Looking at that.
Shout out to Clever app.
Zoom in more.
Shout out Clever.
How do you want me to zoom in?
You can't really zoom in like the way I thought.
It's good.
Money.
Perfect.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Spots on the ice. We mentioned this before. The old Shaq Hyman in there. Look at a Matthews season. You'd be shocked.
I know.
That how many are just from here. You're thinking about his toe drag release and his one-timers on the power play. Even that guy, it's got to be 50%. Is that fair? I have no idea.
Oh, it's
kind of throwing that out there.
No. I remember doing it was a homework project from a junior coach in 2012.
Hockey homework.
Hey guys, go watch Stamkos' 60 goals on YouTube. It's up there. It's still up there. You can go do this homework yourself. Question comment of the day.
I feel like I've done it.
And yeah, just look at where he scored his goals and where were they from. And he had 60 that year. And, off the top of my head, I believe it was 40 in that zone, like 8 or 10 in his famous one-timer power play spot.
Yeah.
And then like 4 empty netters and 4 breakaways, something like that.
Yeah. If you want to score more goals, get to the house right at the front door. Have you noticed anything trending, Corey, like maybe a spot in the ice that's maybe starting to pick up a little bit more production other than the obvious?
I would say the obvious is king. Like you see guys like you mentioned Hyman already, but Sam Reinhart, Carter Verhaeghe, some of these huge playoff performers, they're taking it right to that zone. You mentioned Matthews, Tavares. You're seeing guys from the net front all the way up to that high slot there. That's king, right? The guys that can kind of have a quick change of angle and bring the puck there are going to create the more chances, get that higher expected goals percent, and overall score more goals.
Break down the dead ice for us.
Mhm.
Point it out
So
what it is, where it is.
you're looking at the two corners there,
Yeah.
going up towards the hash mark. So that being the dead ice there, and having an understanding of Fenwick and expected goals comes into play here, where maybe having the puck there and seeing the percentage of goals and understanding not the most goals come from this area, and understanding now, let me make a play to get into either repositioning myself to getting a toe drag into the area, maybe making a slip pass through, getting that puck in there, and just having a quick decision making of, okay, maybe this isn't the best shot to take.
There's such a huge spot, that dead zone. There's such a huge trend of seeing this beautiful short side rip, and there's the talk of the goalie reverse VH, and then there's you're seeing skills coaches teaching the sharp angle dead ice shot. Like it's a huge thing right now. How
Is that a
real is
terrible
that though?
idea,
Yeah,
Corey?
that's what I'm getting at. Is that?
It's definitely not a terrible idea. You wouldn't want it to be your go-to, but having half wall guys is definitely, like, wouldn't want to say a dying art, but something that is definitely taking sort of fruition here, where getting the short side snipes from that half wall there is an unexpected shot. And it's
Not in the league, coach. It's a free breakout pass that drives you crazy.
That's it.
Yeah. What if you're prepped for that as an offensive team?
Prepped for the.
Okay, let's say it's known that you're playing against a team, you are going to be expected to be pushed to the outside. Let's talk about like playoffs. And you might be able to get some point shots, but like the idea of skating around where this player is and just feeding guys wide open in front of the net, it's very unlikely. Mm-hmm. So your team is now prepped that you're coming in from the sharp angle and you have the green light to just be ripping it off the goalie's water bottle from that sharp angle, and your weak side D or whatever it is prepped for that coming around, so you're just coming down to like slap it back behind the net.
Yeah, I mean,
is that all a terrible idea?
I can tell you
definitely don't think so.
I can tell you I've put it into my bad, Corey. I've put it into practice, Spencer. We had two brothers, the Savoy brothers, last year, and one of them has an incredible shot, and he'd be up on this side of your screen, taking a power play high curl as a righty, and then walking in and ripping it. And his brother Nick was also on the power play, and I just told him, if your brother Cam is shooting that puck, you better be at the other side of the ice on the wall. If you're not there, what are you thinking? He's scoring or it's coming to you. So I've definitely had to adjust for that one last year.
Nice. I don't know. It might have to do, I forget what the term is, but like my selective memory, that I feel like I'm noticing the sharp angle goals more. And I know that we were talking about that map, shout out Tim Turk, that he was posting, and clearly the gold is in the bottom of the net.
Mm-hmm.
I think you want to score more goals. If you can't shoot a puck low blocker posting in, go home and practice. I don't know. Is that fair? A lot of the time you ask kids to shoot low and they just rip it top corner regardless.
Mm-hmm.
But anyhow, am I the only one that's noticing the trend that there are more shots from the sharp angle, top short side in?
The highlights.
No
doubt.
I was watching, I don't know, probably 11, 12-year-old kids, and I was actually watching a group of really talented American players. I saw a lot of sharp angle goals.
Right.
And, I know the goalie's a bit smaller and all that type of thing, but yeah, just going into that dead ice and putting that puck in the perfect spot, it's unstoppable.
It's an interesting thought. I always wonder, because you see these highlights over and over, sharp angle bingo, back of the helmet, in the net, whatever, bottle pop. And I'm thinking, well, it's not all the goals though in the NHL, because then you watch an actual playoff game, you don't see it. You know, it's just the highlight reel. I think we're just seeing this tiny amount of goals because it's the nicest goals, and it doesn't really represent what's going on, or at least that's what I think. I haven't looked at the stats as Corey has, but what do you think, Corey? Is this a huge thing that should be getting as much traction as it is?
I think it's definitely a trend here, and it's not a bad idea. Like you do see a lot of goals from there coming now, a lot of the highlight goals, but the bread and butter comes from inside that hot zone, and if you can get to that slot, put a puck 3 inches above a pad or so, and that's where you're going to score the most goals. I definitely like the idea of you saying there, like kind of designing plays for that dead zone, especially if a team is trying to take that house away from you. And, right, like having set plays there, it creates the open for the house too. If you can get to that dead zone, now they're expecting a shot from there, being able to then now walk in and get a higher percentage shot. Definitely not a bad idea.
I agree.
Yeah.
I'm seeing a lot, Spencer, of coaches, especially scoring and shooting coaches, talking about distance from you in the net and when you have no business shooting high.
Yeah.
So you're getting to a certain distance from the net, you should be going under the arms.
Yeah.
And that's a really, I'm glad that information is getting spread around, because I've coached lots of players who shoot at 5-hole or shoot at top corner, and there's never an in between. And just to bring up the fact that
You're talking about junior players or young bucks?
junior, I'm talking about junior players.
Yeah.
And I've told them, hey, try. It's a really interesting thought, the distance, and to say you love your top corner shot, beautiful. But once you hit hash marks or closer with an aggressive goalie, it's not going to happen. And talking about it's some interesting information that kids are not thinking about at all.
Yeah. Again, I say very often when I ask players to pick low corners, I've seen some horrendous results where you should be 8 out of 10 putting it in a really good spot, and you might even be 2 out of 10 if you want to score more goals. Yeah, I think if you're in any position, like you said, you're getting closer to the net, especially when a goalie is set to you, you have to have those spots down.
I hear other coaches talking about we want a low to high pass and a shot on net, or like I said earlier, we want to cross, if you're going to call it the golden road. Can you draw that for us in green or something? A line right down the middle of the ice. Yeah, any pass that's crossing from one side of the line to the other, that's the kind of shot attempt we want to get. And I've heard coaches say that, and I've also seen specifically with power play talking about we want that pass over the line, and then we want our shot. And then another line might be just above the top of the goalie's crease, right across, and we want that pass from low to above. Yeah. And then we want that shot. And it's talking specifically about how the goalie has to move, basically, right? It's just moving the goalie. And the goalie tracking from here and moving out on the challenge is really difficult. And of course, moving side to side is really difficult.
Yeah, love the idea of the side change. Especially if you can have a puck that changes sides on the rim.
Mm-hmm.
Or let's say you pass it low to high and the D doesn't have any time and space, so they rip a puck around the boards. And then if this puck is then passed to the other side, I think you can really open up some good looks. One question
That's
I
tough
wanted
on
to
a
ask.
goalie.
Oh, for sure. It's tough on a defense too. You get a puck that rims around the net, and the other team retrieves it, and now you're sending another. You have some options, I think. Corey, is there anything that you've kind of found is a good way? Like we were talking about the dead ice before, but anything to start attacking in the house? How do you get open there? How do you create scoring chances in the house?
Yeah, I think using that dead ice to get there is a big thing. And then it's all about deception and changing of angles. Players are too good nowadays. Goalies are too good nowadays. You can't let them know where you're coming from. It's all about leading your eyes one way, moving another, and just a very quick snap of decision making.
Yep.
That's how you're going to get there. That's how you're going to score more goals.
Yep.
There's big talks, of course, of the reload, Spencer. So you see, like, we love to use Austin Matthews as hometown Toronto boys here.
Yep.
Getting lost out of coverage and coming back.
Yep. It's very hard for a defending team to put 3 guys up high. So yeah, if you're an offensive player or a forward, for example, and you're reloading and kind of getting lost, it's there's going to be 2 wingers that are playing up top, but it would be insane for an opposing team's defender to chase you up to the blue line to make sure you're not getting open for a pass. It's hard to convince players to do this.
It's really hard. Talk about how good it is on defense to get them to buy in.
Yeah.
To have just defensively, you're in such a great position to be having your skates back towards your net, and then when you see something develop, you come into the zone unnoticed.
Yep. And at the same time, if you've sent a puck down deep and now you're reloading, if you have 2 teammates battling for that puck, not only if they win it do you kind of have a better vision of what area you're going to start attacking and what's open in the ice, but if they lose the battle and the puck gets sent up to the wing, you're in great position to begin your angle, and centerman's not getting behind you. So it's great to have both roles there that you can find open ice and
clip it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Or do we have to do a redo there?
That was solid.
Great. So anything else to talk about the how do you score more? We kind of talked about getting to the house. We talked about some dead ice. Made some other good points there. Is there anything else we want to add?
I want to ask Corey about how okay, I'm so foreign and green to this. You're telling me about these equations and what it means, and you're passionate about it, and it's awesome. How can someone like me or Spencer, who's coaching, both of us are coaching U10 as well this year, AAA, how can we take this? How do we get started? And how do you think we can bring it back to minor hockey, where we're not going to see Whitby AAA on the hockey puck? What is it? Money puck. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. I think the biggest thing is just kind of understanding how they work. So, like I was talking about earlier, with Corsi being just a chance or shot differential, understanding how these shots are coming, understanding the quality of chance, but then taking this to your players and teaching decision making. So, having them understand where to be, what the right pass is, and just getting them to be able to process the game at a fast speed, but not giving up movement speed. So being able to move it quick speed, keep up the same position of play, but then make quicker decision making. That's where the understanding of analytics comes in. Like you said, you're not going to apply analytics to minor hockey. So
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd love to see shots by line. Love to see, you're again, you don't have uh, a bunch of people doing this. You don't have the technology. Um, I know a lot of teams track shots. Is that kind of fair?
Oh yeah,
If you're starting to talk about which lines are producing and some sort of like differentiation between shot quality and scenario and that type of thing. Is it an individual effort of somebody carrying it wide and being in dead ice and throwing it at the net? Is it, point shots? Is it whatever? It'd be good to get a bit of insight how you're generating, what you're giving up on a consistent basis.
For sure. Yeah, and I mean, Belfry talks a lot about if you're not taking, you're giving, right? So if you're not generating more scoring chances, the chances are they're going back in your end. So just being able to teach how a chance is generated, how to maybe better than capitalize on that chance, and where the quality of the shot is best going to come from. That's where analytics is going to come into play, and how a minor hockey league player will get better.
for sure. One thing you missed there, Spinner, which I know you would have loved to mention about that highway reload, was the line change. How those guys come out of absolutely nowhere and how effective that is.
Possession line change is an absolute weapon. You you get some minor hockey kids exhausted on a shift and you start trickling in some fresh dogs. Oh, it's game over. It's game over. Second period, game over.
It's amazing. It's
Yeah,
amazing.
I know. It is geez, if you're good at it, it's amazing if you can start pulling kids off the ice and you are without the kids having any clue to it, they're coming out there and reloading and getting lost. And it's all just because you, at the right time, called somebody off in the offensive zone. Oh, elite bench management.
Elite bench management. 100%. What a way you can impact the game to get your team to buy in on. Um, Give an example, a practical example, Spencer, of how you would get a team to buy in, whether it's as they're skating up the ice and one man is in solo, you call off two, or what is it? Maybe the play is hemmed in and you call off two while they're hemmed in.
I think making it very clear that the second period is a weapon for this, and at the same time, if you don't do it, you get caught, and it's horrendous. That's a good way of doing it. I think
You're talking about the bench position in the second period being such a weapon,
correct,
right?
correct, and that it's if a puck goes deep, it's pretty easy to call a kid off, and there's somebody else coming on the ice.
You want to draw that up for us, Spencer?
Yep. Okay. So let's say let's do it on this side. Let's say this is your team's bench here, and if you have the puck here and you've thrown it in deep, and you have a couple guys on the forecheck, you can get off the ice here, and all of a sudden the player that's coming on, they are completely lost in coverage, and they're ready to receive a pass and potentially get a chance in the house.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It does. So the second period is just even more powerful to have that possession line change.
Yeah, I think that if you made it a very clear theme with your team, that in the second period you have to be ready to jump off the ice when your team's on offense, and how huge it is to have fresh legs and reload the high slot. I think that's huge. I think if you're attacking this way,
yeah,
something that's big is if you have good D-men that join the rush, and you have
yes.
D-men that are joining, that you just pull off your trailing forward.
Yeah,
does that make
absolutely.
sense? So if
yep.
you've got three guys attacking and
one's a D.
and one's a D, and you all of a sudden have a forward that won a battle. Maybe it's even your centerman that won a battle to start the play. They're trailing up the ice. You call them off, and all of a sudden you have a very delayed trailer that's ready to angle and pick up the play coming back the other way. If they do screw up, they're not going to be some tired forward that skates in and gets lost down the ice, and then all of a sudden it's an odd man rush with tired bodies. But at the same time, you might be able to get in that lost in coverage and sneak into the house.
And them being a forward, they're not only just hopping on fresh legs and pausing at the blue line, they're looking to jump down into the play.
Yep.
So that is awesome. Corey, if you were walking on to do some lessons with the Whitby U10 this season, and you're just trying to make an impact through your stats and analytics knowledge, you talked about how it's just about awareness, how that can be an impact. What do you think you would say?
I think I would talk a lot about just how they can score more goals and where they should be to get them.
Yeah.
Doing a lot of drills from the dead zone, I think would help, kind of having putting that reaction base into play and making it a real life situation, and kind of throwing them a different thing every time so that they're not repeating the same process, but more so reacting to what you're giving them. I think that would be a great way to start in introducing it.
Love that. And it's so you're throwing them in the dead zone, but on top of what you're doing in just some basic drills, whether starting in the corner or battling in the corner or whatever it is, you're telling them how nothing happens here.
Mm-hmm.
And you're really telling them, here's some facts. I'm not making this up. Nothing happens here. It happens over here.
Yep.
So when we're here, our mindset needs to be, we got to get somewhere else. And then
exactly
that's how you bring that awareness to them. And that's how you,
for sure.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And that's simple. And coaches do that without the analytics pitch. I would say there's lots of coaches who talk about, plays go to die in the corner. But that's really
Cemetery.
powerful.
I heard somebody the other day loved it.
That's unreal. I think
sorry, I was going to say, I think the biggest asset that analytics would have for a coach here when describing this, and kind of the difference of just talking it and applying analytics, is the whole idea of cognitive bias. So the idea of just the eyeball test you hear a lot in hockey. It's all an eyeball test, and just being able to absolutely say, okay, this is what we need to do, other than this is what I think you should be doing. That's where analytics is going to come into play. That's how I think players are going to get a better understanding of it, and just completely removing that bias.
It can have such a stronger landing, your pitch, when it's backed with analytics. The impact can be substantial. I love that. Good.
Nice. We had some points here talking about how to pick players, and I like how we're kind of bringing up that there is a bit of an eye test to some coaches, and they're kind of doing their analytics just from experience.
His girlfriend's a 3. Got no confidence.
And then we're talking about actually bringing in some rough data on what lines are producing what, and how they gotta create more scoring chances from a little bit more of a structured point of view, as opposed to no confidence.
That's a quote. It's a quote from Moneyball, basically. So, but hey, if you're talking, Spencer, I mentioned this before the podcast about a coach I knew in junior, who coached one of my players more recently, and he was very on stats, and specifically per shift stats. And he was looking for certain players in certain positions to produce certain things, whether it be a percentage of shot blocks. Like I need you to be averaging a shot block every other shift, or whatever it was for you as a defenseman, or I need you to be averaging a hit, or I need you to be averaging a complete
I want you
pass.
to get in our own end, and I want you to block shots.
Right. I'm probably butchering what he's really looking for.
Sure.
So good thing I'm not going to name drop him. But the idea is there that you can really put on paper and present to your players, well, you know what? Jonathan is playing second line today because the last 3 games he's ticked these boxes for me. I know he's out there having an impact. Was he on the score sheet? You know what? I don't care because he gets on base. There's the Moneyball pitch, right?
Yeah.
And what do you think, if anything, Corey, is some sort of stat that can realistically be monitored slightly better than eyeballed and implemented in minor hockey?
Love this.
I think Corsi is a great way to start. It sounds like a mouthful, and the whole calculation can kind of throw people off, but it's as easy as having the spreadsheet in front of you of the roster, tick shot for, tick shot against, and analyzing it after. I think understanding what line is getting the puck in deep, what line is playing more so in their zone.
Yes.
It's a great way to start.
I love that. That is actually so powerful to be able to see which lines are having the most positive versus negative impact in a point blank, in your face truth kind of way.
Right.
I thought line 1 played great today. Look at the Corsi. I don't think so.
Can't wait to see the Corsi stats on Whippy U10. This is gonna be huge.
So Spencer, these hypotheticals I'm throwing at Corey, you guys are about to live it. You're a month away from being top dogs in the region.
Let's not get ahead of it. We got a lot of work to do here.
Both
on the ice and in the analytics.
I know,
Corey?
That's it. Yeah.
I know you guys.
Process.
You guys are going to be a wagon. You're going to be a good team. I know it.
This whole thing's a process. Can't wait.
So tell me, boys, gentlemen, lads, fellas, what are we doing? What's going on?
What do you mean? We got the Corsi rating already loaded up.
Is there anything else?
Oh, we got the trackers and the jerseys. So we got.
Let's talk about.
We got the speed. We got the heart rate monitors. We want to make sure that our D are gapping up. We can't have anybody slacking off just playing D in a rocking chair. No, I need you joining the rush, tracking, gapping up.
In a rocking chair. That's incredible.
Yeah, you can't be doing that. I can't be having my top D just getting by, cruising at a heart rate of 75. I want heart rate monitors like we're at the NTDP program there, the program over the border. And they got, if I'm not mistaken, that is a thing. They have all their guys on heart rate monitors, and they're like, hey, buddy, maybe you got to start working harder. Maybe you got to put me on the ice more, coach.
No, I've heard NCAA basketball coaches, and I've heard them have a new top prospect, and put them through a training session, and then ask them afterwards, how hard do you think you worked today? You think you could have worked any harder? And they say, Coach, I'm absolutely spent. I was all out today. Yeah. And then, oh, interesting. Here's your chart from that little thing you had on your jersey today, and here's an average NBA player at practice. And it's just not even close. Yeah. And it's like, well, you want to make the NBA one day. You're not even, how are you going to catch them when they're working like this and you're working like this?
Talking about practice.
Right. You're talking about practice. What are you guys, you guys have done this already? The jerseys, the monitors?
For the love of goodness, this isn't the NHL. Okay.
Come on, get the jersey monitors out.
That would be great, but that's not happening. No, I'm excited to work through it. Whether it is a bit of heat mapping and our shooting opportunities or Corsi rating, whatever it is that Corey's going to be helping out with. It's going to be a process, and we're looking forward to it.
I think process is the perfect word there. Like nothing's going to change overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Being able to kind of set a foundation with the Corsi and use it as a building block to see, okay, this is how many chances we're getting a game. How do we now improve these chances? Okay, now we'll look at Fenwick. We're now improving the number of chances, the number of quality chances. How are we now going to capitalize on these quality of chances? Insert the heat map. Just kind of using it as a stepping stone in a progression over the season, I think is going to be interesting for me at least.
Love it.
Yeah. So beat that. See
No,
you at the Red Hats.
Yeah, I'll see you at the Red Hats, buddy. What do you you're doing some work with Belleville and I'm sorry, what was the other team?
Lindsay Muskies.
The Lindsay Muskies.
Yeah.
What are you doing there basically?
So in Belleville, I'm a ticket sales representative. So I do season tickets, flex packs. With Lindsay is scouting. So that's something I've recently started. Joined in for their rookie camp, drew up a couple scouting reports, and taking on main camp here with the team this month, and then going into my first season with them this season.
And are you looking to bring a new flavor of analytics to your scouting?
I definitely want to use like the understanding of analytics in the scouting.
Yeah.
So every scout I talk to and research upon, like they value different things more than others, right? For me, IQ is what I value the highest. I think having an understanding of where the player should be, the quick decision making, seeing a player, maybe he's turned over the puck, but was it a good turnover versus a bad turnover? Was he trying to get creative? Stuff like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm probably in the same bias. I know when we look at, I've talked to some other coaches and managers and scouts and who I've worked with, and they've said, oh, this player looks great. And I'm watching as well. And sometimes I don't see it the same way. And I definitely notice that one of my biases is just if you can do things with your head up. And there's certain players who I definitely favor, and I'm guilty of it even on my own, the teams that I coach, that
everyone has biases.
I have a huge bias for a guy who, before he arrives at a puck, has scanned the ice. I've got a huge bias for it. And I've seen players, like when I played in a much lower level of pro in Sweden. Yeah, there was certain guys in the team who'd been playing for 10 years already, and they've got full-time jobs, and hockey's just something they happen to do, and they're quite frankly out of shape. But you know what? Could never catch me on the ice in a race, could never out-stick handle, out-shoot me. But they got the job done so impressively by being completely confident in handling the puck with their head up, reading the ice, making plays. They were in the right spot at the right time. They got the puck. They shot it. They were in the right spot without the puck to make something happen. Like, how are you turning over pucks when you can't skate? You got to be pretty smart. You got to be pretty smart. You're in good positions and you see the play well. How do you put up any points when you can't skate? You got to have your head up. You got to see the ice. You got to understand the game. So I'm huge on, like you, Corey. I'm a big IQ guy for sure. We see it in the NHL. I know Mark Stone's a classic, and you were talking about him earlier. People talking about how he's not fast, and you were correcting that he is pretty fast, actually, according to the speed tracking stats. But players like that who seem to not have the flash and speed of Bratt, McDavid, whoever, but are just producing.
Mhm.
the old timers too, right? Like, unbelievable how these older guys in top leagues like the NHL are still producing against these young guns who would impress you so much more in a drill, in a skills practice.
Yeah. And I think Tavares is probably a perfect example of that, where he came into the league. He was never the fastest guy, but he built a career off of playing smart, knowing where to be, great stick handling. But coming to Toronto, even scored 47 goals. Wasn't the fastest skater in the world. Just IQ taking over.
Awesome.
You see him in Game 5?
Yeah. Speed down the
Fastest man
wall.
on the planet.
That's it. Yeah.
Right on. I did have a bunch of questions in regard to the scouting and how you pick players and stuff like that. I know we've been going for a while here, and don't want to drag this on too long, take too much of your time, but love to have you back on and kind of talk about how you're picking players, like a little bit more of a deep dive into the hockey IQ and like how you identify that, I guess.
For sure, yeah, and definitely next time could come with some sort of visual, sort of my model, how I break it down, and
Nice.
go a bit
That'd
more
be
in
awesome.
detail. Yeah.
That'd be great.
Nice. Right on. Well, thanks again for coming on and sharing some insight, and looking forward to the Corsi ratings out there. Let me tell you.
100%.
That's it. Yeah.
Couple of tough course
wait.
ratings out there.
Oh,
Depends,
yeah.
depends what course you're playing.
Quick update between the second and third to see which line's gonna have to, become a cheerleader.
Yeah, 100%.
Love it. All right, thanks a lot, Corey. Grego, any last words?
No, appreciate you, Corey. This is super insightful. Like I want to ask you a million more questions. How I feel all the time when I talk to hockey people. So thanks for coming on. We're gonna have you back ASAP. A mainstay of the pod, Corey Stats.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. We'll see you soon.
See you soon, buddy.